Sports in the state of Pennsylvania, specifically high school sports. The governor coming out last week and suggesting that the sports seasons be canceled in the fall and wait till 2021. That was met by PIAA saying, okay, we're going to cancel for 2 weeks or put off for 2 weeks our beginning of sports seasons in the fall in order to work together with the state to try to come up with a way to open up. A lot of schools have said, geez, that kind of threw us into a tizzy because we've been working really hard as a school district to try to figure out ways to do this with other school districts as well. And so now the legislators have gotten involved with this. And with us this morning is Jesse Topper, state representative from the 78th Legislative District that includes parts of Bedford County out in the west. But he and Representative Reese are going to be holding a press conference this morning at 11:30 to talk about legislation to ensure school decisions are made locally and to allow students to be eligible academically and for sports for an extra year. And with us this morning is Representative Jesse Topper. Good morning, Representative. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. Good to be with you.
Well, great to have you in here this morning. But you've got a press conference today at 11:30. Tell us a little bit about the two pieces of legislation that you and Representative Reese will be putting out there this morning.
Sure. Representative Reese's legislation is specifically targeted toward this issue on extracurricular activities, which would allow local school districts, which we felt that had already been allowed to make this decision, but all as with many times throughout this process, kind of blindsided by the governor's press conference last week. But his would ensure that any decisions regarding extracurricular activities could be made at the local school district and local athletic conference level. And then my legislation is a little broader. It applies both to academics and extracurricular activities. It would allow for any parent or family to opt in to an extra year at that grade level. So in other words, if your child's in third grade and you're going through this year and it's an all-virtual year and they're not able to get that same academic experience that they felt that they should be, and they don't feel they're ready to move on to that third grade level or fourth grade level, they'd be able to say, look, we want our child to repeat this year. And everything that would be available to them at third grade this year would be available next year. And the same if you're a senior and you're not getting to play your senior year of football. The parent would say, look, we need them to be able to do this. I mean, look, this is about allowing our kids to pursue their dreams.
Right.
Sometimes that involves athletics. Sometimes it involves extracurricular activities involving, the science club or cheerleading or band or whatever the case may be. And we need to, if we rob our kids of these opportunities, they don't get these years back. You and I can go for 2 years and maybe miss some of the things that we normally do here as adults, and we can recover from that. But kids don't get those years back, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah, Representative Topper, I want to go to your legislation first because I think it's the most important thing. I really think it makes a lot of sense because when we think about it, how many times have we held kids back for a second year of, let's say, first grade? I mean, we did that with my daughter. From a maturity standpoint, she was a very young first grader. We did it again. It wasn't because she was doing poorly, but we held her back from a maturity standpoint, and she did very well and then ended up going to Northwestern University. So we've done that for a long time. We've just done it at the earlier grades. So what you're suggesting now is something that's not necessarily new, just applicable at a different particular time in the, in kind of the process of being educated, right?
Right. And also in this case, it would be strictly up to the families,
right,
if they chose to do that. And the other thing that it would add into that, once again, is really that academic piece, which
Absolutely.
Even if someone is held back in one of the later years, they're not eligible for an extra year of competition.
Right.
This would allow that to happen because, of course, they're missing their competition this year. They're missing their workouts. And I think you're going to see that, at the collegiate level as well. But specifically for us at the high school level here in Pennsylvania, I think we need to, again, offer that to these kids. I mean, for some of them, this is their ticket. And even for those who aren't going to play collegiately or play professionally, it might even be worse because, for me, the last night of high school sports for me was the last time I stepped foot on one of those competitive fields. And,
right.
and so I think to rob kids of that opportunity is simply not fair. And the PIAA and WPIAL agree with us, and we want to make sure that we have their back in this process.
We talk about, and I think your point about, academically first, obviously student athlete, one earns the other, but the academic part first, I've heard a lot of different educators saying, hey, listen, this online stuff sounds great, but it's not the same education as being in person. And the idea that there's a lot of gaps and holes in there that might not otherwise be there in terms of real education and getting you prepared for college, or maybe some other kind of trade school or some other kind of 2-year school afterward. It's not the same. And so giving the parents that option, I think, is very important. You mentioned something else earlier, though, too, Mr. Topper, that the governor, originally you had guidelines go out to the various school boards and so forth around the state about putting together their programs. The problem was, the ball kept moving all the time. The goal kept moving, and you're not quite sure about, if I make this up, if I come up with a program, is it going to fit the requirements the state has? The governor last week kind of stepping in and really catching a lot of people off guard by saying, hey, I think we ought to just close down the schools. It's not a mandate, but it's a recommendation for the entire fall part of the year. And again, taking away that local ability to do the decisions. And I think that's where Representative Reese, I guess his particular legislation is coming into play. He's saying, okay, if you're going to let the local school districts have the ability to make their own programs, then let them do it. Don't be throwing those fastballs, trying to throw a fastball past us there in those situations like the governor did last week. Your thoughts about that?
Exactly, and when you remember back in the early spring when this hit, the legislature worked with the administration, we worked with educational stakeholders, and we had to get through the school year, and that's what we were trying to do, is to ensure some kind of continuity of education for these kids as they made it through the school year, and it worked. I mean, in the sense that school districts were able to come up with a plan. Where it didn't work, though, is what we've heard from, as you said earlier, from teachers, parents, and students alike, and administrators. That simply was not a quality level of education.
Right.
And look, I was homeschooled. We have tremendous cyber school opportunities here in Pennsylvania. Not every kid learns the same way, and for some kids, cyber school is the best. For some kids, a charter school is the best. For some kids, homeschooling is the best, but not for everyone. And we have to have robust options available for each one of our children. And essentially, what we're doing is we're taking away a main option, which is in face-to-face instruction in a traditional public school model, and to remove that for many kids, I think, is disastrous. And we found that out in the spring. So
right.
The idea that now with all the with more months of research and data that we would just simply continue on that path this fall just doesn't make any sense to me.
Do you have a sense
when
on
we saw how it didn't work?
Do you have a sense on what kind of support you're going to get on these bills? Do you have any sense of what kind of parental support you're getting there, or student support so far from what you've done in terms of getting ready to introduce these?
Sure. I'm in a unique situation. I also coach football at Bedford. I've been around that program for a long time,
right.
And so I'm getting a sense of these kids. First of all, one of the things I'll say is we ask these kids early on in their off-season workouts, their voluntary workouts, you got to wear masks, you got to stay physically, socially distanced at the gym and in our chalk meetings
mm-hmm.
and all these things, and they've done that. And what frustrates me, Gary, is we said if you do these things, you're going to have an opportunity to play, because that's the plan that
right.
our district laid out. And so for them to do all the things right and then now get to this point and have the season in jeopardy really is fundamentally unfair to them, A. But B, I get the sense that they want to play, but also that they would like to have that option, that if for some reason they're not able to be in school, they're not able to get that educational experience, that they would like to have that at some point when schools are fully able to reopen. And so I think it's going to be well received. I think it's going to be well received, quite frankly, on both sides of the aisle. I'm sure both bills already have Democratic co-sponsors. I don't think this is a partisan issue.
Good. Well, that would be something unusual in itself, right, in the world of politics. But, Representative Topper, thank you for taking time to be with us this morning. We'll be watching eagerly today to see how it is received at 11:30 when you and Representative Reese step out there on the press conference. And good luck with the bill, okay? A lot of good thinking went into this.
All right. Thank you so much, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And good luck on your season as well, okay? Keep our fingers crossed.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Representative Jesse Topper with us here this morning on WSBA. They have